You have to walk the talk. You have to be authentic as a leader. If you're not doing it, they see that.
It is entirely universal. There's other people who are going through this.
For me, a great leader needs to be able to marry three things: vision, systems, and people.
Welcome to Leadership Moments. If this is your first time, and if you are returning, thank you for your support.
This show is about leaders from all walks of life, leadership tips, and maybe even a little of what you wouldn't expect to help you in leadership.
We would appreciate it if you tell someone else about our podcast as we strive to support all leaders that want to just be better.
Let's get on with the show.
Today, our guest is Saahil Mehta. Sahil is a global citizen, serial entrepreneur, best-selling author, keynote speaker, and a leadership coach who guides ambitious leaders to scale without sacrifice. With business ventures spanning 2 countries and a life enriched by bold mountaineering feats, Sahil embodies the essence of balance between success and stillness, ambition and alignment. As a CEO and entrepreneur navigating multiple roles, passions, and family life, Sahil has become a trusted voice for fellow leaders who seek to do it all without burning out. His journey from overwhelm to inner peace now serves as a roadmap for others to live and lead with clarity, power, and presence. His book, Break Free, is a personal testimony of transformation from the fear of judgment and self-sabotage to the triumph of conscious leadership. He is a recognized voice in global leadership and has been honored among the top 200 global thought leaders and the top 10 rising global Indian influencers. He is also a proud member of the prestigious MG 100 cohort, which is personally mentored by Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, one of the world's leading executive coaches. But beyond his accolades and titles, Sahil's mission is profoundly human: to help leaders stress less, grow faster, and live a zero-regret life. Today, we are going to talk about defining your own clarity and achieving your personally defined success. Let's jump in. Sahil, I am so excited that you're on our show today. I know that you're going to bring a ton of value and some unique perspectives about leadership to our listeners. And I'd love to start with your story about really what helped you define success, or how you defined it for yourself. So could you tell our listeners that story?
Absolutely, Stacey. Such a pleasure to be here. And thank you for having me on your show. It started with, I guess it goes back to my teenage years, perhaps early adulthood, where I was made to believe that success was making, having more than $1 million of wealth, having a nice car, living in a nice house, being married, having a couple of children, being able to travel, hopefully debt-free. And so I had this image in my head that was probably a combination of what my parents shared, society, school, media, etc. But it wasn't really my definition. So when I checked all these boxes, I wasn't feeling it. It's like someone told me that, okay, if once you get to the top of the mountain, you're going to be like, oh yeah, I made it. It's, it's amazing. But I was like, something doesn't feel right. And that's when I started asking myself a lot of questions. Like, why am I here? What is my purpose? Who am I? And that's when the journey of kind of that introspection began, of really diving inwards, because so much of my life was focused on the life outside that I very much ignored the inside.
Yeah. And, I want to dig into when you started digging into that and what you did. There's this realization of, wait a minute, that might be just my parents, or that might be my siblings, or that might be just the environment that I was in, but it's really not me and what I want. And I love that you turn the question around to say, well, what is it? And you label the very important aspects that a lot of people always say, not necessarily important, but the common aspects of what people say is, you are successful in your career, you have a family, you're financially debt-free, all very, very common things. So please tell me a little bit more about these questions that you were asking yourself and what happened next?
So before I answer that question, another thing that you just reminded me of is I felt I was suffering from the same illness that majority of society is suffering from today, which is when I get, and you fill in the blank, I will be happy. It was always a moving goalpost. Even when I checked all the boxes, I'm like, why am I not celebrating? Why am I not jumping up and down with joy? But I didn't feel the fulfillment that I thought I was supposed to be feeling. And it was always, okay, what's next? What's next? I want more of this, more of that, a bigger house, more money. I want my business to expand more. It's always more. And it wasn't until I met a few people, they said, well, why can't you be happy now? So when I was on this quest to answer your question, I started asking myself these very difficult questions. And one of them is, who am I? Because when I was born, I didn't have any citizen. I didn't have a passport. It was only a few weeks later that I was then declared a citizen of a certain country. When I was born, I had no name. When I was born, I wasn't a brother because my sister was born after me. So there's all these labels that have been put on me, either self or by others around me, and that started to define who I am. But when I went into this question of who am I started to strip away these labels and say, okay, no, that's a label. But then if that's a label, then who am I? And what is it that really I want? And I realized that as an engineer, Stacey, I'm here. I'm in my head all the time. I'm in my head. I mean, we all are in our heads, but everything for me is logic. And when someone says, what do you feel? I'm like, no, that's not important. It has to be logical. It has to make sense. So it's very difficult for me to even tap into my feelings. And then this was probably, this was about mid 2000s or 2010. A lot of people started talking about purpose. What is your purpose? I know my purpose. And, wherever you go on social media or on podcasts, on wellness talks, everyone's talking about purpose. And I'm going, I actually don't know what mine is. So coupled with not knowing who I am or stripping away the labels and trying to figure out purpose, I actually started to get anxiety because I said, if this is not who I am and this is who I thought I was, then it feels very uncomfortable not putting yourself into a bucket or not putting others into a bucket. Why do we ask others, hey, where are you from? Where did you grow up? Because the moment they give you 2-3 data points, you just say, okay, let's put them into this bucket because that's there, that's where they kind of fit in. But I didn't do that for myself. And then with purpose, everyone's talking about purpose, but I don't know what it is. So this is now causing me a lot of stress until I came across this book by Michael Singer. And Michael Singer, wonderful author, he wrote this book, The Untethered Soul. And in that, he wrote there's a universal life purpose for everyone, which is for your soul to leave your body in a better state than it entered it. Now, that gave me a lot of peace because I said, you know what? I agreed. Like, you just have to be a good human being. Be good to yourself and be good to others. And by that, you elevate yourself and everyone around you. So that worked for me. But I still wanted to discover who I am and what does success mean to me? What gives me fulfillment? And it all happened when I was on this retreat with, I think there was about 6 other entrepreneurs with me. And this was back in 2016. We all agreed to 2 words. And those 2 words were no judgment. Now, for me, as someone who's a people pleaser, that was, oh my God, I felt this huge weight just lifted off my shoulders. I felt I didn't have to impress anyone anymore. I could just be me. And when I realized that I just had been wearing this mask for so long, and I don't even want to call it a mask because it felt like it was a permanent fixture on my face, that I had to please others because I wanted to make them happy, because I was afraid of conflict. I was afraid of judgment. And I don't think it was intentional, but it was just conditioned from an early childhood. And because I realized it helped me at a certain time of my life, I kept at it. But at some point, that belief system doesn't serve you anymore. It may have worked at one point, but I just kept carrying it with me. So anyway, in this environment of no judgment where I could just be me, for the next 3 days, I can only describe it as euphoric. Now, I'm going to share one story, if I may.
Yes, please.
We're at this dinner, and we're They have entertainment while you dine. So, they got a illusionist, they have singing, dancing, acrobats, etc. And they have these acts throughout dinner. And we're sitting right next to the stage. When I say right next to it, my arm is actually on the stage. I'm literally next to the stage. Now, at the end, they had a group of dancers come up. And one of the ladies, she looks at me and goes, "Come up." Now, the previous me, by the way, I love to dance. I love music. I love to dance. But the previous me, afraid of judgment, I would have looked the other way. I would have, pretended to be on my phone. I would have done anything not to go up. But I said to myself, hey, no judgment. Who cares? I'm just going to go. It's about me. And I went up there and I just felt liberated. And she did something at the end which surprised me. She put her arms around my neck and flung her feet in the air. Now, thank God I caught her. But I was thinking to myself afterwards, she just met me. And at that point in time, she had more confidence in me than I had in myself. That sounded wrong in my head. I should have that confidence in myself. And so as I'm coming back from this trip, I wanted to share these moments with my wife. And so I started noting them down. And as I started writing on the plane, I feel the water, tears trickling down my face. And I'm wondering what's going on. Like, it's not like you to cry. But again, I didn't want to block anything. I was done with that. I'm not trying to impress anyone. I don't care if someone says, oh, men shouldn't cry or this, nothing mattered. I just wanted to be me. And I let the emotions flow. And what I came to realize, Stacey, is if this is the man that I am, who's this guy that I'm going back to? Because that's not me. And I realized that as I started thinking and reflecting, those old prison movies where they had the ball and chain wrapped around their legs so they couldn't escape? I felt I had hundreds of those wrapped around my legs, and I'm just dragging it everywhere I go. And I'm just thinking, Sahil, that's so much effort. That's so painful. It's slowing you down. It's just causing a lot of stress and pain and anxiety and all sorts of other things. And although I know that I'm not going back to a world where there's no judgment, I said, even if you're half the man that you were, you're still way better off than where you were before. And so that's when I said, I need to start identifying what is this clutter that I'm carrying around with me everywhere? And how can I identify it and then eventually eliminate it from my life? Because that's the guy I want to be. Fearless about being himself, not afraid what anyone else thinks, because that's when the best version of me came out. And that's what I enjoyed and I fell in love with immediately. I said, this is great. I didn't know life could be so beautiful. Eventually, people started to notice a change. So they said, Sahil, what's going on? Like, your health is better. Your energy is better. Your relationships are better. Things are looking a lot better for you. Share some of the secret sauce. And that's when I started to share in a small group, became a larger group. Then I realized it needs structure and framework, because it's one thing when I do it for myself, but it's another thing when it's for other people. And so I put a framework together which enables anyone to, one, find more clarity, because they will identify I'm a mountaineer. So we have this concept called the 7 summits, which is the highest mountain on every continent. And when you conquer all 7, it's like you've conquered the world. Now, I've done 2 of the 7. I don't know if I'll do all 7, but I've done 2 of the 7. And I said, but what if you could identify where your 7 summits are? Because if I ask you what's important for you, everyone says, oh, I want to be rich, for example. But what does that mean? Is it rich in wealth? Is it rich in health? Is it rich in relationships? Perhaps all of them, perhaps more. And so we really go into detail that what does success mean to you by identifying those 7 summits? And why 7? 7's a nice number, lucky number 7, 7 colors of the rainbow. 7 just has this nice flow to it. And if I asked you for 3, everyone would choose health, wealth, and relationships.
Yep. For sure.
if not at least 90+%.
Yep.
You to think of 7. Now you got to go, what else is important for me?
Yeah, I love that.
And like, I gave you an example. One that showed up for me was fun and recreation. And I didn't realize how important that was for me. So that gives clarity, because now you know, I know these mountains I wish to climb. And then the second was, now that I know which mountains to climb, let me identify, what am I carrying with me? So instead of the weight being around your leg, the ball and chain, is what weight do you have in your backpack? Because if you're carrying excess baggage, it's slowing you down. It's making it a lot harder. So let's identify that and get rid of it.
Yeah.
It's not just what we have to get rid of. Here's the other part, which is fantastic. It's what is good what gives you enough benefit that it has to be in your backpack. Because a lot of things that can give you benefit, but you don't need all of them, and that still slows you down.
Yeah, well, I just went on a trip, and me packing my luggage, there's a lot of things in my suitcase that I didn't necessarily need.
There you go.
I could have just had a backpack for the trip. Well, and I want to get into your framework in just a minute, but you've said so many great things in just those last few minutes, and that I want to make sure we pause. And I want to make sure our listeners caught it. And the first of many is when you realized, look, no judgment. You put yourself in a situation that you felt comfortable and safe, and it sounded like you had an accountability partner of having this no judgment zone to be able to open up and realize what's really possible within you. So I think that's so important. And so for our listeners to take that away of how can they put themselves in those situations. So I ask all listeners to reflect on that and say, how can you put yourself in a no judgment zone for an extended period, and then doing that reflection on it, which is what you did when you got up on that stage. One, you really embraced it by getting up on that stage and recognizing that someone else had more confidence in you. That was a big reflection, and saying, I don't want it to be that way. I want to have the most confidence in myself, right? It's most important to me. And so understanding what that is and what you want. And then the last thing, what you said was, I broke the ball and chain. I realized this is who I want to be and who I need to be around that. And just really beautiful in those, it was a stepped approach of how you got there, and recognizing for our listeners that it's not going to happen immediately. First of all, recognizing that, hey, I'm not really the person I want to be. And who do I want to be? Who am I? I've been told all my life who I am, but who am I really? Who do I want to be and believe that I want to be? And that will take time to recognize that. So I just want to really appreciate that in those pieces. There were so many good things that you just said there that I want to make sure our listeners are catching it and taking it away from this episode on what that could be around that. So just so important. There is one thing that you said too that I thought was really interesting, and I never really thought about it, was when you said, hey, when you ask a couple questions to get to know someone, like you as a leader, you are always trying to build that relationship, trying to help people feel comfortable. And as soon as you ask those certain questions, you're putting them in a box. And how do you stop from doing that? And one thing I thought of is a book that I read recently was called Super Communicators. And great book, by the way. And what they talk about is, instead of saying, hey, where did you grow up? It's, what was one of the best memories that you had growing up, right? Or what is your best part of your day at work? What do you love the most working at that company? You're not pulling out where they work or where they grew up or what environment they're in. You're letting them choose how they are defining themselves. And so it just kind of changes the dynamics. I don't know if you've noticed anything like that or been able to ask different questions to avoid you mentally putting somebody in a box. Even though we try not to, we know that just happens, unfortunately, with unconscious bias. So any thoughts there before we get into the framework?
Well, look, I love what you said. I don't think anyone does it intentionally. It's just maybe that's how you've always whenever someone asks you when they meet you for the first time, those are the first 2 or 3 questions they're asking you. But now that you've heard this episode, you've just got these wonderful questions that you just shared. Take a snapshot of these. And the next time you meet someone, ask in a different way. Just be curious and see what opens up. And that's what I love. I love curiosity. And that's, side note, but I love hanging out with children, young children. They're so cute. They're just, why, what, but tell me more. I want to understand this. And, some people find it irritating, but I love it because I go, why am I not asking such a question? Why am I thinking I know everything? Because the reality is I don't know anything, right? I mean, if there's 100 things to know, I know less than 0.00001. So let's be honest, there's so much to learn. There's so much to absorb. So how about I change my questions into something that is really curiosity rather than, oh, these are the standard 3 questions I ask everyone when I meet them.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And it's so easy. It's kind of like when you see someone, you're like, how you doing today? Right? And what do they say? Good, fine. And then you just keep going. Do you keep going, or do you actually ask, well, tell me what was good about it? What is good about today? So it is staying curious. I love that. I talk to people all the time. If you are very deliberate saying, I'm going to stay curious, you instantly just open your mind to whatever is possible and saying, okay, I'm going to be open-minded. I'm going to have taken these different ideas and want to learn, rather than tell you what I know, which tends to be easier as we get older and more experienced. So I love that you say that.
Well, here's the thing. We've all heard, everyone likes to be seen and heard. Guess what happens when you're curious? The other person is seen and heard. And they it and they go, oh my God, I enjoyed this time with you so much. It feels like we've known each other forever.
Yes, for sure. I love it. So true. Love it. Okay. I know our listeners are going to want to hear this framework. So tell us a little bit about this framework that they can kind of walk away with and learn from. And I know you have a book about it too, so they can reference the book, but let's get into the framework first and then we can talk about the book.
Sure. So, as I mentioned earlier, it's 3 steps. The first step is really clarity. And what I encourage people to do is define their 7 summits. So usually what I do, I give them a list of the 12 most common answers. It doesn't mean you have to pick from the 12. If you say, hey, there's something in my life that's important for me that's not listed here, go for it. I'm not trying to push you into any place. I'm just, in the mountaineering world, I call myself a Sherpa, right? I'm your guide. I'm coming up the mountain with you. You're the hero. So you pick the 7 most important things in your life. And then we start putting them in order. And how do we put them in order? I tell people, imagine these 7 mountains as 7 balls. And you're juggling these 7 balls all day, every day. Now, some of these balls are crystal and some of them are rubber. So make sure you know which ones are crystal balls. Because when you drop those, it's not very good.
I talk about that a lot with my clients, the crystal balls and the rubber balls, for sure.
Exactly. And, a classic example is, which unfortunately, myself included in the past, I took for granted, was health. Now, health, once it drops, like I have in my case, my own mother, my mother-in-law as well, both of them had an incident. Now they're healthy, they're taking good care of themselves. But because of that one incident, they're on medication for life. So for me, that's a crystal ball. You dropped it, it shattered, and now you're going to have to take something for the rest of your life. And had you been more conscious and more aware, hopefully that wouldn't happen. Whereas you got the rubber balls where, let's just talk about money. I mean, if you lose money, and even if you become bankrupt, it doesn't mean life's over. You can bounce back. So just make sure you know which ones are which, because I see again and again with the leaders I work with, they focus so much on the rubber balls. And in many cases, they ignore or give less emphasis on the crystal balls. So once you have that, you start putting a priority in place. And guess what happens? Decision-making becomes a lot easier. Because now, when I have an important decision to make, I ask myself, what is the net effect on the 7 summits? Is it overall up or overall down? Because before, the previous Sahil would say, ooh, this mountain I go up a lot, but I didn't think about the other 6. And guess what? The net effect was actually negative, which I only realized afterwards, which led to regret. And my whole philosophy is about moving towards living a zero regret life. And how do you get zero regret is by becoming successful by your own standards, because then you're fulfilled, and fulfillment is the opposite of regret. So now decision making becomes easier, because now you just say, what is the net effect? Right? And not just, because I had my blinders on before, I would just focus in on one thing, and that sounded really attractive, but then it wasn't overall. And I found out the hard way. So that gives you step 1, clarity, which enables decision making to become a lot easier. Then the second one, as I mentioned, it's okay, now that you're climbing these summits, what are you carrying in your backpack? Is it something that needs to go? You need to declutter it from your life. Then let's find the tools that are going to enable you to remove that excess baggage. Because it's tiring when you have all that weight on your shoulders. It's hard, whether it's emotional, whether it's mental, sometimes even physical baggage, always the desire to want more things.
Yeah.
It's painful.
Letting go is sometimes the hardest thing for people, for sure.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, people often ask me, Sahil, how do you define clutter? And I say, clutter is nothing more than shunned confrontations. How many times have you said, I'll get to it later, it might disappear? You just need to face it. When you go up a mountain, it's never straight up. A mountain has peaks and valleys. And in order to get to the peaks, many times you have to cross valleys. So when people expect this magic pill, if I read this book and I follow Sahil's framework, I'm going to live the best life. Not necessarily, because you have to have the discipline, you have to have the courage, you have to have the humility, the self-love. Because if you just say, oh, I want to be comfortable, don't read my book. Don't even listen to the rest of this podcast. If you want to be comfortable, you're just going to do whatever you're doing and life's not going to change. But if that doesn't give you fulfillment, in order to grow, you have to face your fears. And it's the courage that's going to take you over rather than the fear that paralyzes you and pushes you back in your comfort zone. So identify the clutter. And the second is, with the stuff that's left, is it giving enough benefit to be in the backpack? And I only make 2 exceptions to that rule. One is when I'm climbing, I might have a talisman. I might have a photo of my family, something that is very meaningful, that feeds my heart. And it doesn't really take up much weight, but I can't have hundreds of those. I can't take a photo album with me. That's not going to work. But one image or, a good luck charm or anything, that's absolutely fine, because it fuels me on an emotional level. And the other exception I make is whenever I'm climbing, I realize that many times a climber would forget a particular item. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to think about others and not just about myself. And I'm going to carry one thing, which I'm pretty sure someone's going to forget. And you won't believe this. I went on a trip recently. It wasn't a mountain, but it was a hike. And my mom was there on the trip. It was a family holiday. And she didn't know, or many others didn't realize, how cold it would be when we went another 1,000 meters up. I carried an extra fleece. It was my own mother who got the benefit. She was so grateful. She was so grateful. She was so happy. She goes, oh my God, my own son had something which I could then use.
How wonderful.
Exactly. Now, if I only thought about myself on this journey, I would have had a mother who'd be cold. Yes, I could have taken something off and given it to her. I would have been very cold. But because I thought of someone else and not just thinking of self, I had one item that was extra that could benefit someone. So it has to be giving enough benefit as well. And then the third step, which is very important, is how do I ensure I take one step every single day towards any one of my summits so that slowly but surely I get there. I mean, I just did a mountain recently, And my guide says, you see that mountain over there, that top? I said, yeah. He goes, that's where we're going to be in 5 days. I said, that looks really far. I don't think so. And this is even after having done many mountains, but my mind plays tricks on me, and all these things start coming. No, it's far. I don't know if we'll make it, and this and that. But guess what? We just focused on taking few, step after step after step. 5 days later, we were there. So that's all it takes. Don't think of writing a book. Don't even think of writing a chapter. Think of writing one paragraph.
Yeah. Yeah. I love those steps. It's a great framework. I talk a lot with my clients about clarity, and you can have a vision, but if you don't have clarity on that vision, you're never going to get there. And so I really love your first step to be able to get you there and understanding it. And, I have a lot of my clients create a vision board, and then I have them ask themselves every day, what did you work on that helped you toward the vision board? And what did you work on that didn't help you toward it? So it kind of goes to the 7 summits, really, of am I doing right now what's helping me get to my 7 summits? On them. And I love that you're like, don't try to juggle all of them, like prioritize, make sure that you're figuring them out. So many good nuggets in that. And I love the backpack analogy because you can only fit so much and carry so much. So very, very important for sure. Now, this is in your book, Break Free, right?
So Break Free actually focuses on step 2, which is decluttering one's backpack.
Great.
So the book is actually titled Break Free, A Guide to Decluttering Your Life. But the new book that I'm working on, which I'm co-authoring with my mentor, I'm super excited. That one, the working title is Zero Regret Life, and that's going to have the entire framework in there. So that should be out, I'm guessing, in the first half next year. So I'm really excited about that.
So people can start working on decluttering their stuff with Break Free, and then in early 2026, they can get all the 3 steps and be ready for it. So it sounds like very, very cool. Love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And even on my website, I've got this mental well-being quiz that just takes a few minutes of your time, and it will give you a kind of a snapshot of where you are and what you could do, because you get a score at the end with some suggestions. So, the audience are more than free to do that now.
Yeah. I really appreciate that you're combining health and well-being with leadership coaching and helping leaders, because I do the same. And it's so important that there's so much science out there and data out there that shows that when you take care of yourself, you show up more resilient, you show up more creative, and you are just more powerful, and how important it is. And as leaders living very busy lives, it's very easy to let go of yourself because you're taking care of your family, you're taking care of your team, you're taking care of your organization. But if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't do any of the other pieces. So I'm really pleased to hear that you're combining it all together.
And thank you for highlighting that, because a lot of people feel it's selfish. And I say, no, you just highlighted all the things you do better as a result of taking better care of yourself. And we've all heard the saying, when your cup is overflowing, then you have drink to share. But if your cup is near empty, what are you going to share? And it just drains you out.
Right? Completely. All right, there's that sound. It's time for our fun questions. Are you ready for the fun questions?
Let's go.
All right. Would you rather eat the same breakfast every day for a year or never eat the same lunch twice?
I'm going to go with never eat the same lunch twice.
Yeah. I kind of figured that with you being a mountaineer, like you to experience things. Is that why, for the experience of doing different things, or what's your thought behind that?
It just pushes you to explore. It's funny you asked me this question. Many times I tell my clients, give up a major food group for a month. Not because it's good or bad. I'm not even going to get into that. But just give up any major food group for a month and just watch new things that open up for you. And you go, oh my goodness, I didn't even know this existed. And it's beautiful. And again, in so many facets of life, you can do that. Shut one door, force yourself to open another door and walk through it, and just enjoy the newfound magical experiences that will come.
I love it. Yeah, it's part of the staying curious mindset, right? Love it. Okay, next question. Would you rather explore space or the deep sea?
I think I would definitely space. Definitely space. I I don't know, whenever I've gone scuba diving, I've had this issue with the pressure, and I feel when I'm in this space suit where it's regulated, I'm gonna feel a lot better. So just for that reason alone.
Yeah, great. All right, I might know the answer to this one because of some references earlier in the episode, but the last question is, would you rather always have to sing when you talk or dance when you talk?
Definitely the latter. Um, I always tell everyone I'm a rock star, but unfortunately I can't sing. So yeah, dancing, definitely better idea.
Love it. Love it. Well, Sahil, thank you so much. You brought a great framework to our listeners, so many ways to reflect on who you are and who you want to be from this episode. So, really appreciate all your insights that you brought to our listeners today.
Absolutely. And I'm going to share one final tip.
Please.
Again, you've probably heard this. Don't say you've got a lot of golden nuggets from this episode. Pick one. Don't pick all the ones that you think you want to try. Just pick one. Anything that you go, yes, this is it. And don't pick the hardest one for you yourself. Pick one where you go, I know I can do this. And then don't say, I'll start it one day. Make this day one. Just do it today. Don't procrastinate. Do it today. That's it. Simple.
I love it. Thank you so much.
If you enjoyed the show, please go to leadershipmomentspodcast.com to subscribe to the podcast or on your favorite player, as well as follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn.
You can also send us a message on what you like and don't like, or what guest you want us to have on the show.
So until next time.
This is Stacey Castor, and what doesn't challenge you won't change you.
And I'm Tracy Ann Palmer. Be the change you wish to see in the world.